are ready to resume talking about our flowers, I have one more that I want to talk about. And okay, I'm stretching just a little bit because the ivy is really more of a plant than the flower. But look, flowers, it has flowers on it. You can see those little flowers. Ivy actually does produce flowers. It produces small little yellow, green, or white flowers. But with ivy, it's really not about the flowers. With ivy, it's about the function. Ivy is a really important plant because it holds things together. It's plant glue. It's great to plant on banks to prevent sloughage. You'll see it a lot of times on these stately mansions. You know, you see the pictures of the beautiful mansions in England or whatever, and they've got the ivy. You know, the ivy-covered halls, as you'll hear about with some of the colleges. And that's because it loves to climb and stick itself to things. It actually secretes a glue that holds it to surfaces, and then it grows these little tiny hairs that creep into the crevices, and that kind of keeps things all together. So those of us who are ivies are, in the church, the glue that holds everything together. We hold relationships together. We just keep people connected. My mom was an ivy. She was always planning family parties and events, and her big goal was to always have her family united and walking in love together. And so I know there are those in the church who are ivies. You'll find ivies involved in small groups, with women's ministries, anything that involves bringing people together. You will find an ivy at the center of that. The only problem is that sometimes we can turn into poison ivy. And we do have those of us we're wired to be ivies. Almost all of us at one point or other can become a poison ivy. So, poison ivy. Anybody ever stumble into poison ivy before?
Yeah.
No? Yeah? Was that a lot of fun?
And I had smoke too get in my eyes that was burning.
Oh.
And I mean, I missed school for a whole month.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. It can last for days, it can last for weeks. It will eventually resolve, but while you're going through this, it feels like it's lasting for years. So poison ivy is not a good thing, and neither is human poison ivy. So how do we recognize when we're around a poison ivy? I'm going to give you ladies a chance to guess. What might be a poison ivy behavior? Negativity, that's a good one.
Gossip.
Ha! The magic word, the big G, gossip. Ooh, baby. You know what? I always think before television and radio, that was probably the number one entertainment of women everywhere. And we see that, we even see it mentioned in Bible times. The Apostle Paul is saying, these young women, don't be letting them go from house to house gossiping, because they just didn't have enough to do to keep their little selves happy. Now, how do we know when we're gossiping? Well, usually the Lord will kind of bump you on the head and say, you're gossiping. But if we've kind of anesthetized ourselves to that, I just happen to have some clues on how you know you're gossiping. And maybe we can turn the camera up just real quickly and see if we can catch that on a slide. You might have to enlarge it a little bit. So, how to know you're gossiping? You know you're gossiping when you're sharing something that hasn't been made public knowledge. And there you are, the town crier, letting everybody know. You're gossiping when you're sharing shows the person you're talking about in a bad light. If someone is misbehaving, why aren't you talking to the person who's misbehaving? Why are you telling your friend that that person is misbehaving? Why aren't you going to the elders or the church? Why aren't you going to pastor? Why aren't you going to somebody and dealing with that? You know you're gossiping when what you're sharing could divide friends or give a bad impression of someone. You know you're gossiping when you happen to be angry with the person you're talking about. That, as we say in the world of fiction writing or police work, is motive, goes to motive. What's your motive behind what you're saying about somebody? You know you're gossiping when what you're sharing makes you feel just a little bit superior. The problem with gossip is that often blows situations and people's character out of proportion, and it damages reputations, it pushes grace out of the picture, and it paints a picture in people's minds that they will have a hard time getting rid of. And I'm going to give you an example. This was a couple years back, someone was telling me about Joe Schmo, and just giving a little incident about Joe Schmo's naughty behavior, and I realized later, what I heard about Joe Schmo prejudiced, easy for me to say, prejudiced me against this person. I hadn't even met this person yet, but I already had an idea of what this person was like. I finally met this person and realized this is a nice person. He just has flaws like all the rest of us. But I had gone into that relationship with a very different idea of what that person was like, thanks to something that someone shared with me. So, the Bible has a lot to say about gossip. Proverbs 20:19. A gossip betrays a confidence, so avoid anyone who talks too much. Proverbs 26:20. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down. Romans 1 talks again about people who are given into sinful desires of their hearts. And guess who's listed along with the greedy, the depraved, and the insolent? Gossipers. Who knew? I mean, gossip is just, God doesn't take this stuff lightly because it is damaging. That's the reason. So we're going to play a game. Due to the fact that we have germs floating around in the air these days and nobody wants to get sick, I thought, oh, it'd be fun to play the game gossip and let's have everybody whisper in each other's face. So we're not going to do that. We're going to pretend that we have been whispering. Let's start with Mary. Mary has a bad back. What could this devolve into? Mary's back. Was she gone? Did she leave her husband? After all these years? Oh no! Or Mary broke her back? She's in the hospital? She might be dying. Wait, what did you say? She's dead? When's the funeral? I mean, things just go when we gossip. They can get very pulled out of shape. I found a really interesting quote on, I'm going to make sure I get this right. It's called desiringgodsgood.org. And this was written by a pastor, Matt Mitchell. And he says, gossip is the opposite of the gospel. It is bearing bad news. And that news might even be distorted. So, how can we stem gossip? Let's learn to recognize it, first of all. Ask yourself before sharing, is this helping or harming? And am I sharing this with the right person? Am I sharing this with anyone who can do anything to help this situation? Or am I just sharing because I got this juicy bit of news? And call it what it is. Stop the conversation. If a sister has a complaint about another sister, instruct her to go settle that properly. Say, well, would you like me to go with you and act as a mediator? Send her to the pastor. But don't just sit there and listen to all her whines and miseries. This is how church splits start. Somebody is discontented and they start building their camp of followers to get them on their side, and all of a sudden you have a war. So we don't want to do that. We want to stop that. Call it what it is. And a lot of us have friends who don't have the same faith, and they just, they're going to maybe want to tell us a fabulous story about somebody. Just got to say, I don't want to hear that. All you got to say is, I don't want to hear it. Let's talk about something else. We can stem that flow of ugly, and let's make sure that we do that. Here's a really good verse for all of us, especially those of us with ivy tendencies. I want us to read this together. For whoever would love life and see good days must keep their tongue from evil and their lips from deceitful speech. 1 Peter 3:10. Okay, now, we appreciate all of you, Ivy, who work so hard in God's garden to keep things together, to keep everyone close. But let us remember, whether that is your tendency or whether you're tempted once in a while, we do not want to turn into poison ivy, and we do not do things that can damage our fellow believers, our friends, and our family. So no poison ivy allowed. We're going to stem that in ourselves, and we're going to help each other to not become poison ivy. So there we go. There we have it, ladies.
Amen. Thank you.